Welcome to Rejected or Selected, a podcast where we talk about job search woes, hiring horrors, and everything fair and unfair in and around our work lives.
All right, Deanie, what's new? What's new with you?
It was a massive day today. Driving in traffic. I've got a scooter now, finally bit the bullet, and traffic was insane on the streets of Bali. So I'm just coming down, like my cortisol was up here, but seeing your face, Simon, it's just starting to drop down.
Made it worse.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
exactly. Of course. I have that effect on a lot of people, I've been told.
I won't fall asleep, I promise.
No worries. I do remember you sending me a WhatsApp message early in the week about getting the scooters. I'm glad that's all gone to plan as well.
Yep, and survived.
There you go. I've had an absolute rotten day myself. Absolutely
Sorry
terrible.
to hear.
Yeah. Remember when we had Shill on a couple of months back and he started off talking about how Manchester United lost and he was a bit down? Well,
Yes.
Spurs lost game 4 of the NBA finals today to I can't even say their name, giving up what was probably a 27-point lead. Look, I'm still representing, still wearing the gear.
Oh.
It's more than I can say for any of those plastic New York Knicks fans out there. Yes, New York Knicks fans, I'm talking to you. You know who you are.
Scandalous.
You couldn't even name your starting lineup. Anyway, that's all completely irrelevant to our topic tonight. Now, Deanie, remember our last episode? It was a discussion between you and I about the state of corporate branding, and we talked about recruitment there as well. And there was just so much. There was so much. I made quite a few notes listening back, and I don't like listening to our episodes. I hate listening to my voice when it's recorded. Don't mind listening to yours. Yours is fine, and our guests, obviously. I'm like, but
get used to it, Simon.
We brought a guest on. We've got a guest with us tonight on tonight's episode because we wanted to have a bit more of an in-depth discussion about that. So when we talk about recruitment a lot, it's that it's probably the most relationship-driven industry in Australia, if not globally, right? It really is. It's all about people. But something that recruitment agencies often get wrong is their marketing. And their marketing, to me, it's still 2009. So we've brought on our guests tonight. We've got Mark Pearce from MPI. Mark, great to have you on the show. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. Good evening to you both. Thank you very much for having me on.
It's our absolute
Thanks
pleasure.
for being on. Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, Mark, we'll get right into it. We'll get the audience to know you a little bit, but I'm sure a lot of our audience and the people that will be listening already know you as a known entity within recruitment, in WA at least. So, look, you've worked in recruitment quite a bit for some real serious players. I've got a list here. NES, Faircroft, Anglo Gold Ashanti. I believe you're at Water Corp. We might have been there at the same time as well. And most recently, you're at MPI. Walk us through how you get to where you are and what drew you specifically to the marketing side of recruitment.
Yeah, so I have to think back to 2001 now, when I first got into recruitment, fell into it, I think as most of us do. And I went for a job interview for a sales job at the time. And there was a recruiter who was interviewing me, said, have you ever considered recruitment? I thought, well, what's that? Didn't know too much about it at the time. And that was that. Started my recruitment career in Stockport, Greater Manchester back then. And 25 years later, I'm still thereabouts in recruitment. As you said, I've worked for some really good firms, been very lucky to work for those firms. In terms of marketing, I guess I've always, since I was a young kid, I always had a fascination just like watching people and, around family and just watching people in general, just sort of fascinated by it, why people do what they do. And probably around about 2016, 2017, I kind of got into copywriting. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mitch Sullivan. I did his copywriting for recruiters course, probably that was now 2016, 2017. And then that got me into copywriting. And then I read probably Cialdini's Influence. I don't know if you've read it, but it's a fascinating book, just again on human behavior. There's a lot of what he talks about in that book is a lot of marketing terms. There's a lot of good from it, but also as well, it can be used to manipulate people. And I guess back then I was seeing marketing and the way marketing sort of works. And there was a lot of sort of peddling around fear, that sort of old school marketing. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to stand against that. I'm interested in doing marketing. I'm going to do it for the right reasons. I'm going to help share knowledge and try and help as many people as I can. And then I set up my own kind of recruiting blog back then. And it's kind of grown from there, really. And it was only until probably the last 5 or 6 years that I've really taken an interest in marketing, sort of in that talent acquisition, talent attraction space. And then more recently now, my last 2 positions have been sort of marketing management roles where I'm kind of setting the strategy and driving that strategy. So I guess sort of TLDR, it was just a fascination with people from an early age. And I feel I've found my spot finally.
Great to hear after all these years, you finally finding your spot, which is a story we hear often quite a bit from a lot of our guests on the show. But it seems like you've invested quite heavily in your marketing education as well. I believe that you've also completed, I've got here some notes, the Marketing Week Mini MBA with Mark Ritson. I hear that that's actually very, very rigorous as well. Can I ask what prompted that sort of investment into your education?
Yeah. Oh my word. You're not wrong. That was a beast. That was a beast of a course. Look, great course. The exam was a killer. I don't know how many extra grey hairs I grew doing that exam towards the end. But I guess the investment that really is, I've always, I wanted to do some formal marketing training, right? Because I kind of always had an interest in marketing, but I wanted to know if I was doing it right, for use of a better word. I thought I was doing it right until I did the mini MBA. Turns out I probably knew 10%. And then the other 90% has come from doing that course and getting that qualification. So it's well worth doing. I've learned so much from doing that in terms of understanding how to diagnose a market, how to put a strategy in place, and then understand the right tactics that are going to drive that strategy. And then also as well, apply that to recruitment. Because at the time when I looked at this initially probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 years ago. And at the time, the head of talent acquisition didn't feel it was the right direction for me. And I just thought, no, I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm glad I did. It's one of the best courses I've ever done. I don't know if you've heard much about Mark Ritson and the course, but it's highly recommend it. It makes you a better marketer, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I've got to be honest, I've only heard about it when I was researching for this show. So yeah, definitely news to me, but yeah, it did look quite rigorous.
It is. It's a tough one, but it's enjoyable. You feel good. You feel good when you get the results back.
What year did you complete this mini MBA with Mark Ritson?
I did it 2024.
Okay.
Recently.
Completed it.
Very recent.
December 2024 is when I got my results. So I did it sort of, you start in end of August, early September. Yeah.
Yeah, because in marketing, it just, with especially now digital marketing, there's just so many new avenues, new funnels, new tools, platforms to get on and master in terms of marketing. How do you feel about that? Like, do you feel like the mini MBA actually allows you to apply foundational, I guess, strategies to all these different avenues?
It's a great question. I do actually. Yeah. And if I think back now to probably, I think it was about 7 or 8 years ago, I did a Cert 4 in social media. Yeah. And a lot of what I've learned or what I learned then, a lot of that now is redundant. Probably about 70, 80% of that. Whereas with the mini MBA, you're right, it is the foundations. It's how you diagnose a market. It's how you segment that market. And then you kind of go through the strategy piece. And then it helps you understand the right tactics as well, right? So it's all about finding your audience where they hang out and speaking in their language. But it's without, I think a lot of the time without that strategy, you go straight to tactics. It's the tail wagging the dog. So definitely it has. It's taught me a hell of a lot about understanding why strategy is so important.
Yeah, ringing very true, especially from our last episode discussion. I think I've ranted a little bit too long, hey, Danny. That's yeah. But you mentioned there, about going to tactics. Can you share with us what are some bad tactics, I guess, that you would end up turning to without a strategy in place?
Yeah. Another good question. I think what I see a lot, and if I apply this now back to recruitment, is I guess the amount of what class as content marketing, the amount of social media posts which feel they have no real direction behind them. I see these a lot within, especially employer branding type posts as well, which are advertising an organization, like come and work for us, and they're kind of waving and holding placards and things. I think from that, to me, is a lack of understanding about the audience and knowing who your target market is. Another one, and we see it so often in recruitment, are job ads, copying and pasting the client's job description and passing it off as your own advert, right? And I think, again, with that, there's no strategy and you're not understanding your target audience. An example, why would a project manager want to know what a project manager does 9 to 5 every day? They already know that. So why would you recite that to them in a job advert? And it's not a job advert, it's a watered down job description. So I feel sorry for project managers, and I feel sorry for other people who are reading these job ads as well. But to me, that implies a lack of strategy, that if you don't know your target audience, you can't speak in their language and you can't write.
But I think as we were talking about last week, Simon, when a lot of companies advertise recruitment drives or roles, they're not really thinking about it in this is part of our brand type marketing. They are just putting out something that they need to the wider public, and they would just think, oh, well, people who would fit it, they will apply because they need a job. So it's quite different from marketing a product. It's an after. They wouldn't even think that it's that it is marketing. It's basically, we need this, so you will come and try to get what you need, which is a job. And they don't really think about the applicants as part of their demographic or their marketing targeting. So I think that's probably why.
No, you nailed it then when you said they need a job. And I think that's how their ads read, right? Is, we'll put this on Seek and just hope that the right people will apply to this. It doesn't really address those people who might not necessarily need to change jobs at this moment in time, right? So, they may have had a really crap day in the office and they go and, they might stumble on Seek and see a job ad. There's not many out there that talk to the audience, so they've lost that particular target market, right? But again, you're right. It's a lack of strategy. They don't know the audience they're writing to. And I feel that that's not been trained. It's not, in a way, I kind of do feel sorry for a lot of recruiters in that they haven't been trained in how to identify the target market.
So is it more an issue of lack of, I guess, education and training for new recruiters around this?
I'd say so, yes. I think that's one thing. But look, we can all learn. I think sometimes, you look at training and development from companies. A lot of the time, I think people expect to have that training and development. But for me, it's 50-50. You've got to have ambition, you've got to have hunger, and you've got to, you have to want to learn how to improve your craft and how you sharpen your skills, right? It's not all down, I guess, to the organization. But I also feel as well that leaders in recruitment could also address that and train more of their consultants up, definitely.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. It's you can have all the training and professional development thrown at you early on, mid-career, whenever. But if you're not absorbing, if you're not engaging with or actively learning it and improving based on what you are learning, then it's just all for nothing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Look, there's so much potential and so much talent out there. And I've not seen much change. I think you mentioned before 2009, you've been marketed to. I haven't seen much change since I've been in recruitment. If I'm being completely honest, there's plenty of training courses out there. There's plenty of qualifications you can do. What was really interesting, not to go a different segue here, but the RCSA carried out a study. It was about 2 years. 70% of recruiters said they want some form of training and development or a qualification. Because the industry, as we know, doesn't really have one as such. There's few different qualifications, but no industry standard one that I'm aware of. And about 70% said they would leave a job or their job if they got training and development.
Let's go right for the jugular now, Mark. So if I were to ask you, give me a rating from 1 to 10, what is the state of Australian recruitment marketing right now, where 10's really great and 1 is very poor? Whereabouts are we sitting at the moment?
You are putting me on the spot with this one. Look, I think I'll have to answer this. I'll separate my answer into 2 parts. If you were looking at people who are good at their craft And people that I see, not many, but people that I see who go out their way to understand their audience and their content marketing, and they try with their job ads, and they kind of got it together, and you can see that they want to do something for the greater good in recruitment. I'd score those people probably 9 out of 10. But then if I've got to look at it as a whole, as an industry across Australia, the standard of recruitment advertising right now, recruitment marketing, I don't know if I'd be able to score it a 1 out of 10. I'm probably being harsh if I say 0.5. But if I'm looking at and I speak about this regularly, if I'm looking at a Seek or I'm looking at any particular job board, if I'm looking at an organization, how they market, even when I was doing competitor analysis for MPI, I'm going to sound like I'm all doom and gloom here, but let's score it 1.5 out of 10. I'm probably being a bit harsh, but
you're giving it a whole point more.
Not. What's that? Sorry?
You're giving it an entire point more from what you originally started with.
It's not in a good state. And, we've discussed about people wanting to be coached and wanting to be developed, and are they using the skills in the job that they're in to get better? I think it shows through the sort of employer branding and the job advertising and recruitment marketing out there. It's not in the best space. Can it improve? Well, you look at it, if I'm scoring it 1.5 out of 10, massively, it can improve massively. Yeah. I'm probably going to upset a few viewers there and listeners, but that's my apologies in advance for that. But look,
that's okay. We do that every week, so it's all right. That's totally
honesty
fine.
is a great policy, the best policy.
It's how I feel. It's how I feel about it. I do advocate for recruitment marketing and recruitment in general, but we need to pull our socks up. Come on.
Yeah. So recruitment marketing, let's bring it back to that for just a second as well. Look, there is a widely held belief that, recruitment agencies treat marketing as simply just a support function, producing job ads, the social media posts, the templated emails that go out, rather than, an actual strategic driver in the organization. Is that a fair way of putting things, or is that changing in any way in Australia?
I think it's more than fair when you put it that way. I think, look, there's not many recruitment companies that have their own marketing department. That's the first thing I see, and I'm in a fortunate position that MPI has created this position. I feel very lucky to be working in this role. But when I look at other organizations, I don't see many marketers. When I worked at Furcroft, interestingly, they did have a marketing manager who was based in Brisbane, but it's very few. And even I know Hayes has one or two in Australia. But I think when I look at it, that sort of support function for me in general, recruiters are kind of left to their own devices to do their own recruitment marketing without any type of formal qualification. And I think without that training, without that knowledge, they tend to see it more as a tick box exercise. It's an admin task. I've got to get this off my desk, and it's like, I've got to write an ad, I'll copy and paste this, or I've got to do a tile. I don't know if you saw one of my posts recently, but I'm now seeing job ads where there's chat GPT prompts in them. I just think to myself,
we actually put that specific post up on our last episode, and I've even
I did. I saw that. Yeah.
I had a bit of a laugh out loud in the office that day, and someone came in my office and said, "What's going on?" I had to show them. I said, "Look at this! Look at this!"
Yeah, it's incredible. Right? But look, I mean, in some respects, kudos to them for actually having that bit about them to go and use AI to say, right, how can I make this ad better? But take the prompt out. It doesn't really do favors for our industry, does it? When we see things like that. But back to your question, I do see it more as an admin task. It's when you think about recruitment, it's kind of like always in selling mode, but I also think you have to have that full complement of skills as well. And I do feel that marketing is definitely in a recruiter skill set.
Yeah.
But they need to be coached. They need to be developed on that to understand how marketing works. Because if they don't, again, we're going back to that tail wagging the dog scenario.
Yeah.
And I see that's what's happening out there a lot.
Yeah. That job ad with the prompt in it, unfortunately, I would hazard a guess that they did get applicants anyway. However, obviously, it's probably not the type of people that they were aspiring to recruit. So quantity over quality, I think, in recruitment, it seems.
You're right. It does seem that way. And again, I guess going back to job ads is, what are they giving to the reader to help them make a decision why they should leave their job? go and take this one. And if they're seeing something like, I can also tailor this for Seek and Indeed, I got to ask yourself, well, how's that going to attract an individual reading that ad? So I'm sure they did get some applicants, and hopefully they got good ones, but I don't know.
Speaking of Seek and Indeed, do you feel that there's an over-reliance on those job boards in Australia today? So my ad's going to get seen anyway because Seek and Indeed are the two most dominant, job sites in Australia. So people are definitely going to see it. Or is it a symptom of something else?
I think when you put it that way, an over-reliance, yes. I think there's an over-reliance on job boards. And I think, with the greatest of respect, I think Seek knows that as well. They're doing pretty well in terms of profits and whatnot. Let's not probably go there this evening, but yeah, there's definitely an over-reliance on that.
We can if you want.
Maybe.
Well, that means Seek is doing well with their marketing. Unfortunately, not the recruiters themselves.
Well, yeah, that sort of over-reliance on them. When you think as well in terms of I call it now consumer behavior, but job seeker behavior, right? So why would someone go on Seek? They're probably looking for a job, or they need a job right now. As we discussed before, there is that need. But then you've got the other audience as well, in terms of, rather than active, but that sort of passive audience, whereby they might have had a bad day in the office. They've stumbled on there and they've started looking for a job. They're not seeing what they want, and they're off again. So there is that almost siloed in that I'm going to advertise a job, I'm going to put it on Seek. I do feel you need to have job advertising in terms of, and it's a marketing term here, the long and short of it. So short-term activism in terms of filling jobs here and now, but regularly advertising. And I'm talking advertising, good job advertising, where you're actually hooking the reader and you're giving them something to read, so they kind of look forward to reading your ads, is also good for long-term brand building. So you're building that sort of salience about your brand. I also feel that there should be more than one channel. So Mark Ritson coins a term, bothism. And what he means by that is don't just rely on one channel, rely on several, or as many channels as you can, right? Because you're not going to get that brand reach if you just rely on Seek for putting your job ads out there. So is that Facebook groups? Is it, do you run a blog? Do you capture people by SEO? You have your company page on LinkedIn. There's so many different channels that people can use to advertise jobs and advertise their company. And
Reddit.
Yes, Reddit. Reddit is good. That's a good one. That's an interesting one, Reddit.
Yeah.
But
they get creative on Reddit, actually. Reddit is where they do get creative. Recruiters or hiring managers from companies.
Yeah.
I think on Reddit they get quite creative. It's more like grassroots recruitment.
Yeah. There's a good few on there. There's that, is it Recruiting Hell? That's a funny one to watch. But it's almost like they let their hair down on Reddit, but when they're on Seek, they have this facade of someone that they're not, and you have to look back on that and go, so what does that brand stand for? Everyone just feels they have to be uniformed. And look, we mentioned Seek. Do we talk about them respectfully? I know a few people in Seek, great people, but do they offer job advertising training? They do, but they're written in ways that will help boost their platform.
Yes, of course.
I'm going to say it. I've said it.
I mean, not unsurprisingly.
Yeah.
Same as LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn is now a big funnel for recruitment.
It is. But no, I think so. I don't think you should be reliant on one channel. I think you should use as many as you possibly can. Test the channels. Make sure they do work for you. You might have some channels that don't work. I guess sometimes LinkedIn, does it work? Is it that effective? I think with the algorithm at the minute, most people would disagree. But company pages work well. So you've got to find your place. You've got to find out where your audience hangs out.
Yeah.
Active audiences looking for jobs. I don't know what that is in Australia at the minute. If I had a guess, 30, 40%. So you're only going to capture 30, 40% of your market.
Right. Speaking of the market, Mark, so MPI, you guys play primarily within the mining resources sector, which, as we know in Western Australia, is the engine room driving our economy. Now, is there a fundamental difference between the way a recruiter operates in that space as opposed to, say, in the tech space or professional services?
It's a good question. I'm going to answer this like a marketer should, because I don't really have much experience in terms of that sort of professional space, because I've always had mining background and did a bit of, obviously, utilities for Water Corporation and back into mining. bit of oil and gas, but really, no. I'm going to say no here, because if you understand your audience and you know how to diagnose your market, you know how to segment it, you know who to target, fundamentally, you know how to position your brand, right? So in terms of like, what are the unmet needs of your target audience? And do you stand for that? Do you stand with those people? So I think if you've got your marketing strategy down pat and your tactics are the right tactics that follow, I don't really feel there should be a difference in how you would recruitment market to your particular market. Yeah, you have your brand voice and stick to that. You know, you have to stick with that. You don't deviate at all from that, from your relative differentiators. Naturally, you have your distinctive brand assets, which is your brand, right? But you don't veer at all from that. So that you follow that path, and I think you can be as good recruitment marketer in the tech space, utilities, professional services as you can in mining.
Yeah, okay. So it's interesting, Simon, that you would ask industry based, so in mining and resources. But in reality, mining and resourcing companies would have to cut across different verticals because they have tech professionals in the industry, in their company.
Yeah,
they have professional services in their company. So yeah, I think if you cut it by industry, it's just a bit difficult, isn't it? So going back to what you said, Mark, yeah, like we have cybersecurity professionals in mining and gas, and you would advertise to them, I mean, in such a way that would attract them. So
correct. Yeah, I just think back to the time at Water Corporation. So I actually helped them attract a number of people when they were setting up their cyber team. And I guess really from that, you've got to go back to the job brief, right? You have to understand who you're targeting. You have to understand what they're trying to build. And only until you've got a full understanding, you can't really go out to market and try and attract people, because you're just going to look like everybody else as well. So you're right. It was a good pickup, that actually. Yeah. So you do have different verticals across different industries.
And it's so hard because we were talking last week, generally, and from what I've seen in the companies that I've worked in, and it makes sense. You generally just put out a job ad when you need that person. It's not driven strategically most of the time. It's because someone may have left and you need to fill the role, or, a new requirement comes up from a customer and suddenly you need this person. So it's a tough area, but it's interesting that companies don't really see it as something that requires that strategic foundations before going out to market, I guess.
Oh, it's the before. You're correct. It's before before you actually need somebody, right? So again, just a very quick example to share with you. When we were doing architecture, again, back at Water Corporation, we always kind of had we could have kept jobs on all the time and kept them advertising. But rather than do that, what we did was we actually did a mini series of 3 interviews with the head of architecture at the time, or the architecture manager. And we just talked about how they worked, the tech that they were using, how decisions were made, right the way through to how someone would be successful in their team. We had a specific example of someone who'd been promoted twice over a period of, it was about 2.5 years. And I think when you do that, and it's something, again, I don't really see captured a lot in job ads, is you kind of capture almost like a feel for the culture within that team. You describe how that team operates, right? And I rarely see any ads or any content out there that really that goes into that depth. And kudos to the teams at Water Corporation. They were amazing. I think when you work internally, it's a little bit easier to get buy-in, but they were outstanding just to sit there and record and do videos. And so you're right. It worked. It does. We attracted so many solution architects from just from that one campaign.
I do enjoy those videos, actually. I think that's a really good idea. Yeah.
And you're right in bringing up being internal. Internal recruitment is such a vital function to especially medium to large size organizations as well.
Yeah.
But going back to MPI really quickly. So obviously, a lot of your responsibility is, being responsible, I guess, for your brand, for MPI's brand. But at the same time, you're also, working with your clients' brands as well. Is there any time that there's a conflict between those two responsibilities?
Yes, absolutely there is. Yeah. I'm going through one now, actually, which is really interesting. Naturally, I won't mention company names, but most of the time, your relationship you have with your clients is a positive, healthy one, right? So you kind of, from all of that the sort of business development and getting to know the client, you get to know commonalities and what you both stand for. It's probably two things here. So going back to the job brief in terms of understanding how, what they're looking for, I think the strength of your question at that point, if you're asking smart questions, you're digging deep to understand that company, after a short time, it'll click. It's like this consultant knows what they're doing, or this company knows what they're doing, right? So you're kind of understanding how they work. And then from there, you're looking at your brand positioning, you're looking at their brand position, and find some common traits within that. So you work together on that to go out there. We're doing a co-branded campaign at the moment, or about to kick one off, and within the next couple of weeks. It takes a while to understand that organization. It takes them a while to understand how we operate, but we're both on the same page. You've got to be on the same page, otherwise you don't go ahead with it. The second part to this is I'm going to come out and say it, and this is something I see a lot of recruiters not doing, is that if a company goes against what you stand for, if they're not aligned, with your brand positioning, your brand promise, your values, if whatever you like, you walk away. You don't work with them. There's been companies that I've spoken to when I was at Faircroft. I turned away not a lot of business, but business where I felt something's not right here. There's a red flag. How they operate. One example could be if they're known in the market for not getting back to people.
Yeah.
MPI now is completely against. No, we're anti-ghosting. Awesome. And we shout about that loud, right? Because that's what we stand for. We're human beings, and we understand how human beings feel when people don't get back to them. So if we were to venture on a co-branding campaign with a company that were known for not getting back to people, we'd have to sit down and have a frank chat and just say to them, look, this is how we work. Can you get on board with that? If they say, well, our systems can't, sorry. And I don't want that to sound arrogant. It's not meant to be, but if you don't align, what is the point working together?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's real. I'm impressed. That's integrity. I guess in a market, in an industry, where you see a lot of recruitment agencies, it's all about volume and the bottom line, being able to say your values aren't aligning with ours. Sorry. Thanks anyway. Really...
It's to the point where we've just accepted the fact that we will be ghosted when we apply for jobs. That's how horrible it is out there.
It's sad. It's really sad. And you mentioned Reddit before, but you could go down a rabbit hole with Reddit. But the amount of posts where people are talking about getting ghosted, and I think with that, and not to sort of have a breakaway thing on Reddit here, but there's always an opportunity. Look, if you stand against ghosting, go in and help some of these people, start having a chat with them, explain to them that, it's a short conversation, but I'm going to talk, obviously I'm being brand awareness stakes here, but if you're going in and you're talking to an audience and you're trying to help them out, people remember you for that, right? So I think as an industry, we have to club together, and we've got to drive this ghosting out, because it's not a good look.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's a very common thing, almost so common that anytime recruitment comes up in a conversation, ghosting will come up in that same conversation as well. One thing I want to know, you talked about branding. What's something that you see is a common branding mistake that organizations today make? And the second part to this is, has there ever been a time where you wanted to politely intervene?
Great question. I think, again, just going back, and not to keep drumming sort of strategy in here, but market research. You have to research your audience, right? And again, when I look at the content that's being put out there, I'll come to job ads shortly, but just in general, or we know as marketers, when we look at the state of advertising, the state of recruitment marketing, there's not enough research being done. Now, research is hard. It's time consuming, it's labor intensive, and you reach a point where you can actually do too much of it. So you have to know when you pull back. I just don't see people even venturing into that. So if you can't understand your market, if you can't understand who you're targeting, it's going to show in every single touch point that you have. So when I look at things and I think, stop doing it, I think obviously ghosting is one. The big thing for me right now, and I'm seeing this, right, and not going down a rabbit hole with AI here, but I look at companies and I see this regularly, whereby candidates are complaining that they don't get to speak to a human being until they're 3 or 4 rungs into that process, or they've, I've had a second interview via video. I just think, crikey, what are we doing? Are we no longer human? And I feel for for candidates and job seekers these days. If I look to that and please stop doing it, I'm like, let's just talk to people. Right? If we understand our market and we're advertising to them effectively, we shouldn't be having 600-700 job applicants coming through. There's no way that that can happen when you understand your market. So then you go to a screening stage, and then you go into a first video stage, and you go into a second. It's because the start of the process and the strategy has not been done correctly, right? So then you're going straight to tactics, and that's where it goes wrong. So yeah, to come back to your question, please research your market, understand who you're talking to, and talk to them. Stop doing everything at arm's length, because apparently we've got a talent shortage. I don't know whether we do anymore. I don't think we do. The people are out there. So let's go and find them. Let's go and talk to them. We're probably driving more people away than we're attracting. So yeah, so I've got to be in my bonnet now. Thanks for that question.
I mean, I know some companies are consciously avoiding putting ads out because they don't want to attract too many candidates and have to go through that process, right? Because it's so onerous. And hiring recruitment is not a budget that they have. So most of the hiring managers are maybe the actual team leads or the CEOs or whatnot. So they avoid using job ads altogether, but then it's a longer process to try and find that person because it's just word of mouth. It's like one end of the spectrum to another. It's a bit hard.
It is. And I guess unless you're a really good networker, and some people are, right? You look at some of these CEOs, especially if I look at some of the junior miners, they'll probably do their initial hiring to begin with. And then when they get to a certain size and say they get final investment decision and sign off ready to go, that's probably when they'll reach out. And that's probably when they will need an agency. So no, kudos to those smaller companies that do that themselves. And I understand probably why they won't want to put an ad out to attract that many people.
Yeah, exactly. Earlier on, I mentioned how big mining in the resources sector is in WA. We've got the fly in, fly out culture, people working on remote sites, frequent skill shortages, et cetera, et cetera. How does that make the marketing brief different in a way that maybe, say, a recruiter in London or in Sydney wouldn't really understand?
Are you talking in terms of someone in London and Sydney recruiting for a mining company?
No, just in general, out of that world. Is what I'm really getting at, is there a fundamental difference in the way that we market those roles compared to other areas?
There'll definitely be differences. How you market, and this is what we see regularly, how you market to white collar professionals is different to blue collar, right? So a lot of the time you have to use their language and speak like them. So blue collar, you could probably get away with hard yakka, for example. And a white collar is probably a little bit more, you want to be conversational rather than use slang. But again, it's going back to knowing your audience and on what they care most about. I won't use this as an opportunity to plug some recent research, maybe I am doing, but we've recently surveyed over 1,200 people, right? And probably 700 odd were blue, the rest were white collar. And what we noticed from that, and we asked them the question, what is most important to you when you're considering changing jobs? Because we really wanted to find out, because if we're going to market to these people and we're going to be able to put content out there and we're going to have to advertise jobs, what we see most companies doing is leading with salary. And it's big and it's eating, right? And they throw money at candidates to get them over the line. Interestingly, they don't care about that as much. Yeah. Competitive salary is key, right? You've got to be, that's stakes on the table. But what they care most about, and this is what we're seeing right now, is they want opportunities to use their skills, right? So they're feeling underused in the jobs that they're in. They're bored, they're stifled. The second thing interesting was leadership, and actually having supportive leadership behind them, someone encouraging them, someone that they could believe in. It's totally lacking. So when a company comes in and starts throwing salary at the situation, it might get a few over the line, but that's where you have your talent shortage, is because we're not addressing the real needs of what people actually want, what motivates them. So does that matter for someone in Sydney? Does that matter for someone in London? No, I don't think it's, maybe language and nuances and things like that, possibly, but the process, and I should be exactly the same. You understand your market and your target audience, you can market to them. It's not real difference. If you think about recruitment marketing and marketing in general, it's a process, right? Start to finish. Yeah. So if you follow that process, you're going to attract people and you're going to bring them through.
Mark, like what you've been talking to us about in terms of treating recruitment as an arm of your whole brand and marketing strategy. Has it been a challenge to get that mindset through to companies? Because I think a lot of the time the ads that go out, it's just because what I said before is because the companies don't see that as we need to market. It's more like we have this job and people will apply.
You're right. You're absolutely spot on. If I talk in terms of MPI as a business, right, and coming into the organization with my marketing hat on, well, I've been really fortunate. There's a great team there in terms of they were already doing email marketing when I got there, right? And they already had research, a lot of research that I could pull from. So they get marketing and they understand that every touch point that they have. We had to work a bit on the positioning, and in order to find that, obviously we had to do a lot of the research. And now I'm rolling out some training tomorrow with some of the senior leaders in the business, so they understand exactly how we position ourselves, whether it's through any types of comms that we put out there. So from MPI, it's good. You know, we're on the right lines. We're heading in the right direction. Doing it for an organization, if I think back to Water Corporation, you have to chip away and you've got to focus on one group at a time, I feel. So back then it was IT, and to get them doing things, and to get them doing the videos, to get them doing the posts and the ads, and getting them involved in the conversational style ads, it took a while, but they saw the value in it. And what was really interesting when I was at Water Corporation is you can do that with one particular group, and then another group sees it, and then another group sees it. And eventually
Proof
the
of
organization
concept.
going, that's where we want to go, because it works. It does work. So it takes time. So I feel for anyone in talent acquisition, talent attraction, recruitment marketing who are trying to get that over the line. How do you eat an elephant? Piece by piece, right? So start small and work your way through that. That's the best piece of advice I was ever given in marketing, and I would share that with anybody, is don't think you can turn a company around overnight. You can't. You've just got to start small, get the wins, show you can get the wins, and then other people. It's contagious. Like good recruitment marketing and advertising is contagious. I've always believed that.
And
Yeah,
it
look,
is
I
quite
agree.
it's the same as it's the foundation, one of the foundational elements of marketing, right? The people would be influenced when they see proof and outcomes. It's easier to market to them.
It is, and it's building that trust as well, right? And how things are done. If I've got time for a very, very quick example, if you don't mind sharing, one was the time when again back to Water Corporation, when we're helping out their operational teams, and we looked at the stats and the people that they were trying to attract, and the time it was taking to find these people and hire them. So what we did, and we got a slap on the wrist from marketing, the main marketing team back then at the time, was we decided to flip the ads. We made them conversational. We made them benefit led to their audience. We went a step further. There was places, Leonora, Mikathara, Southern Cross, places out in quite remote. And we ended up going on Facebook groups and joining conversations. We didn't advertise straight away. We just got a feel for who the communities were. And then 2 weeks later, we advertised the job. We did it in a conversational manner. And I won't forget this. We had a phone call from one of the managers. I think it was Leonora at the time, saying, Mark, did you put something on Facebook? We've got people knocking on the door wanting to come and work here. True, on my life. And they've been trying to advertise on Seek. It's not working. Well, you've got to go to the audiences, right? So it's, just a couple of examples there I thought might just be of interest, but it works.
I love that. That's a fantastic example. It really is. It's almost getting back to that grassroots. Like we got this amazing resource like Seek. That's not working. Well, what is? And these are communities, right? That you're marketing to. So of course that grassroots movement is going to work. I love that. That's fantastic. We're going to finish off really quickly tonight with 1 minute rapid fire questions for you, Mark.
Okay.
Deanie, would you like to do the honors tonight?
Yes. Number 1, I'm going to start. Most overused word in recruitment marketing right now.
Most overused word, passionate. Everybody's passionate. Everybody's passionate about everything. If you work in recruitment, you expect your candidates to be passionate. And if you're a candidate, you have to say you're passionate about anything on your CV to get noticed. And I always remember a guy called Bob who once told me he was passionate about boiler systems. Nice one, Bob.
I mean, it could be true. Who would say that?
Look, it could be. It could be. 17th century art, maybe. Boiler systems, I'm not so sure. Excel spreadsheets. I'm not so sure.
I watch the Excel competitions on YouTube, so I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
can
know
say I'm
someone else who
passionate about it.
does. Yeah, I know someone else who does, actually. She told me about
It's
it.
entertaining. Anyway, sorry, Simon, go.
All right. A brand you genuinely admire in or outside of recruitment, and why?
That has to be, for me, it's sewn into my DNA, my identity. I think it's got to be Adidas or Adidas as they're known here. But for me, it started with football terraces. It's your identity. It was I guess how you branded yourself, right? With your, whether it was Sambas or Superstars, with your jackets. It was, and the football team I support, their shirts were made by Adidas and they went to Nike for a bit and then they're back to Adidas again. So for us, it's that identity. It's what you identify as and with. So has to be there. And their marketing's good as well. Their employer branding is exceptional as well. So as an organization,
having Run DMC sing a song about
Oh,
your
yeah.
sleep,
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. It's a huge brand and what they stand for as well. So yeah, massively. I admire them.
No worries. Okay. The one thing agencies should stop doing immediately.
Stop copying and pasting your clients' ads on Seek. Stop copying every other recruiter by copying and pasting your clients' ads on Seek. It's all the same. No one stands out.
And last
I'm
one.
going to take the last one.
You do it. Okay.
I'll do it. Best piece of career advice that you've ever received?
I've been fortunate to work with some great people in my time, exceptional people. But I think I have to reserve that for my mum, who told me that you should never have to boast or talk up your results. Just let other people see it for themselves. Never forgotten
That's
that.
amazing. That's
Well done,
amazing.
Mum.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Mum is very wise because I see lots of boasting and not much outcomes these days.
True. Very, very true.
Absolutely. Mark, Pearce, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you.
Show. Fantastic.
Thank you for having me. Lovely chatting to you both.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's been a pleasure.
Really enjoyed it.
Enjoy the
I
rest
don't
of
know
your
why I
week.
was so nervous before.
And thank you everyone else for tuning in once again. Deanie, I will see you in a couple of weeks for our next episode. You're looking at me like, why am I going to see you
No,
again?
I mean, I was thinking I would see you sooner than that. But okay, Simon, if you want to wait a couple of weeks before seeing me again.
No worries. Well, we can see each other soon. I don't know when because you're in Bali and I'm here in Perth. But anyway, folks, that's another episode of Rejected or Selected. That's a wrap. We'll see you all in a couple of weeks. Same place, same time. Bye-bye.
Bye.